Welcome to the couch. Welcome to Carlie's Couch, the best podcast in the world.
Please share it with someone.
Shout out Botswana still.
Yes, because they be tuning in.
Shout out China.
Yes, Jay, you be listening to every episode.
Hope you safe.
He is. He's in Shenzhen. They shut down everything.
Okay, good.
But he's good. He be listening to every episode. We appreciate you. If the episodes resonate with you, please share with at least one friend so we can grow, share some good vibes and some good energy on this journey to become our best selves.
Yeah, and if you're like me, I love hanging out with people who are just like on the same page, kind of, like we're all working at the same paces. Nobody feels like they're holding each other back. And so for me, I think it's important to, when you feel like something's reaching you or you got some good tips out of it, I like to share stuff with my friends too, based on like what I know they're going through or dealing with, or if I just think it's a cool message. So I invite you to do the same and send it to people. Send us any notes you have or any feedback you have as well. And we love to engage with you too.
We appreciate you. We appreciate you.
And in part of becoming a better person, I've had so many interesting combos in the last couple weeks with all of my different friends in which I feel like all of a sudden everybody's kind of on the same wave of like, I'm ready to like really take things seriously, really having a lot more intention, really thinking about every decision, like the little decisions, like I'm a juice instead of drinking, or I'm eating less sweets right now, or I'm doing whatever, or I'm going to go out of my way to make sure I like plan more meetings for myself.
You love to see it.
And I feel like everybody around me has been so intentional, and all my combos and all, like with all different friends have been around, like, we just got to do what we got to do right now, and like being responsible and pushing forward, because, when you're on your journey, whatever it is that you're working towards, whether you have a business or whether you want to get to a space of some type of happiness, freedom, whatever it is, like in that journey, I feel like you find along the way that it's about needing to make different decisions sometimes. And there's a lot of things that's like, man, like if I just did less of this, more of this, then that will help me to get to that place. And so it's a good thing to assess. And right now, for my Catholic listeners, if you practice Lent, we were kind of thinking around this idea of giving something up. And this time of year, Lent just started a week or two ago now with Ash Wednesday. And what it is for 40 days, you give up something. And during those times when you're thinking about that thing, or you're like, oh man, I want that right now, instead of doing that thing, you're supposed to take a minute to pray or reflect or kind of flip your mind on other things, right? And so I don't actually practice Lent like that, but I was talking to Damo, and he kept being like, oh man, I got to think of what am I going to do? What am I going to give up for Lent? He's like, I think I'm going to give up sweets. I was like, oh man, like, why are you going to do that? Like, I was just asking, like, why do you feel like you have to come up with something? He's like, I really feel like this is that time. Like, I got to quit anything I can not do that I know is not pushing me in the right direction. Like, just stop. Like, I just want to do everything that I can do to say that I did my part, like with moving forward. And again, it's, it's sweets. It's not like we're saying like, oh, stop drinking, or, things that maybe even more make a difference. But even to him, just the thought of the fact that he was like, man, I just don't want anything to be in the way. And to think about how that could be something that seems small, but it's really important to think about like, what, made me think like, what kind of things could we really give up? And like, what is this around Lent? How does this help? What does it do? How can we think about this in a broader scale of, what are you willing to give up to get what you need to get, or to get in certain places? And so it just kind of made me thinking about that, like those tangible things and what we can do to move forward, and just the conversation around that.
I love how events or things that happen, holidays, like around Thanksgiving, people are like tend to think about gratitude more. Around Lent, it's like, okay, well, what can I give up? But on a broader scale, I've been having the same conversations with my friends too. Like even you and I are like, okay, well, we trying to get to this next level. What does that look like? We've had a couple of episodes around that. And ever since we've done Burn the Ships, I've heard that statement at least once a day, everywhere.
I heard it the other day listening to something too.
What? But it is so real. And I wonder if that's a facet of like just the energy and what's happening, or the people we choose to surround ourselves with, or because we made that decision in ourselves and now the energy is kind of
confirmation bias. Because the more you're talking about and exploring a thing, you're seeing that, or maybe I'm more naturally talking more to those friends who are in that same space, and like you're kind of building up that momentum around whatever that thing is.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I don't practice Lent in the religious sense of Lent. Like I'm not Catholic. I was not raised Catholic. I'm actually embarrassed. My first time I ever really found out about, like, I always heard about Lent, and even in the Christian church, we give up stuff, right, and fast and all that. But I was at school my freshman year working, and I worked at a fast food place, and I was like, oh, you have something on your forehead. And then the lady, she was very kind, and she was like, oh, no, it's a religious thing. And I'm like, oh, but I was so embarrassed. I was like, oh, damn.
I forgot about it the other day when I saw people, because I was in the airport on Ash Wednesday, and I was like, what's going on here? And I was like, oh, yeah.
But I don't practice in the religious sense, but I have given up things. Just to practice like self-discipline, or just seeing like what I can do without it. Like, okay, well, why is this part of my routine? If I don't have a justification for it, snip it. Like, why is it here? You don't need it. And so that's kind of been my association with Lent.
I am not Catholic, and I do not practice Lent per se, but I have participated in Lent in the past, like during those actual days. Like, I gave up things and went through that time, and I've done it. And then of course, similarly, like I've done different, stopping something for a little while or whatever. So, and we say that because when you're thinking about your examples, whether you practice Lent or know about Lent or not, this overall idea right now, is what we want to, get in your brain, that right now, Christians think about, what's the right word? Like, not hindering yourself, but like, you're pushing something away to like just practice your own like self-discipline and practice your kind of like focus on what really matters. Yeah. Abstinence. Yeah. So like practicing abstinence of a thing, is to help strengthen you, is kind of what the key is. So just overall with that in mind, we're going to talk about this idea of giving up stuff as we move on.
What are some things, you said that you've done it, for the actual Lenten time frame, but also just in life, like what are some things that you've given up?
So the only Lent that I remember specifically what I did was when I gave up social media. And I'm not sure if I gave up all social media, or it might have just been Twitter, because I for sure remember Twitter being the hardest part of it. Maybe it was just Twitter. But I gave up Twitter for Lent one time, 40 days. And it was just like terrible. But other things that I've done outside of that is I've gone different time periods of not eating cooked food.
Bless you.
Outside of that, I've done, so I've gone like all raw sometimes, or I'll go for 21 days without eating cooked food or meats or other things, processed foods. I've done different times of doing like social media, taking breaks. Social media stalking is like a thing that I tried to like actually see how many days can I go. So I was really trying to like push to like, don't look, and counting off my days. I went quite a number of years not eating pork or eating kosher for a long time. And so there's been different periods where, I consciously took something out and I avoided it.
Yeah, same. Social media, I think in college it was Facebook. That was all the rage, and so I didn't do Facebook. Social media stalking has also been something, but not during Lent. That was just something, like you said, I started marking down days, like day 1, day 2. Sweets. Because like Damo, I have a sweet tooth. And once I get started, if I don't start, I'm good. But the moment I have something, it's like bad for me. I've given up meat for Lent specifically, like didn't eat any meat. I did that like one year for the whole month of February, just didn't eat meat just cause. And I like actually traveled. I was in the South, and they were like, you want some meat? And I'm like, no, I'm good. And they were like, are you a vegetarian? I'm like, no. Are you okay?
Yeah, they were confused.
They were mad. And I was mad because it was like fried fish. And oh my God. Anyways, eating out, like I've given up, like I've tried to do like a month of just like eating cooked food at home or traveling with my snacks and not spending money out. Coffee. Because I drink, I like either go to a coffee shop either every day or every other day, like to do work and stuff like that. So instead of doing that, maybe like tea or just doing it at home.
Well, from your response, I want to ask why. Why did you think you need to stop with let's just say just the food stuff, sweets, meat, eating out, or coffee? Why did you feel like that's something to give up?
Eating out budget wise, like I wanted to challenge myself to not like, so it made me be a better planner because I realized I was spending way too much money eating out. And I was like, well, you know how to cook, like you cook well, like what would it look like if you planned out your meals and actually like were disciplined and not like going out like, oh man, I forgot to eat, let me just grab this cookie or whatever. Sweets, just for discipline. Like I just didn't need it. It's something extra in my life. I didn't need it. Meat, just to try to do it.
So you're not doing it because you don't think it's healthy? Like, or so are they, what I'm asking is like, so they're not negative things to you?
Not social media stalking is negative, but like food wise, not necessarily. I don't think that coffee is bad like health wise per se. Like they even like studies show that like 1 cup a day is actually not like bad for you. But if you're drinking like lattes and stuff every day, that can become an issue. But I just wanted to see what my discipline could look like if I changed my habits. That's really where it all came from. It wasn't like, oh, these are all negative. It was, you know, what does it look like if I abstain from this? Or what does it look like if I consciously choose to change my routine?
And why would you choose those things though if they weren't negative? Or why, you know, is there something when you say you don't want to do those anymore, it's just a challenge to yourself versus you think this can take you somewhere else? Like it's the something else you're building that makes you feel good?
I think it's both. I think it's a dichotomy of both. One, to see like what I can do without it and challenging myself to not do it. But then also like what space does that create? Like if I'm not spending my time at these coffee shops, if I'm not spending my money eating out, like how could I better spend my money? Like how else would I invest my time if I'm not doing it on social media or on these things? So it's like giving the possibility, but you have to remove something to create space to do something else.
That's real. And I think with anything that I've stopped is because I saw something that wasn't good in it. So I stopped it because I felt like my life would be better without it or would be improved without it. Not necessarily just like, oh, I just want to see if I could do this thing. But in turn, it does build that discipline. And I think when you build a certain level of self-discipline and you stick to things, it also builds a confidence and gives you power, lets you shows you that you have control over your life with those decisions. Those little things matter the most because those are like the decisions you're making over and over and over, and they add up.
Yep.
So for me, like I saw when I was eating all raw, like I saw improvement in my health, very much more clear in my mind, like less mind fog. When I gave up social media, I was much more productive. So the thing there was the time suck mostly, and the energy there. For me, with things like social media stalking or something like that, it's around kind of recognizing and breaking that habit and awareness, having more awareness of a habit and really just breaking it and kind of forcing myself to see like that as an issue. And so with all of those things, I feel like without them, I was doing better. Is there anything tangible that you can think of that's part of your life right now that if you cut it, it would drastically change your life? Or if you took this thing out or stopped doing a thing, that it would drastically change your life?
Oh, man. And it's interesting because I'm going to answer with a not something. So, like, not following up, like that, like, I guess procrastination, perhaps, or like avoiding certain things that for whatever reason, like I feel anxious, like but literally it's like not following up with emails, with clients, with things like that. I think that is the biggest thing that would make a difference. So it's like not following up and not following through. So I have been, y'all know that if you've been listening for a while, you know that I'm not a planner. If you haven't been listening, I am not a planner, but I am working on it. And I have my passion planner. I've been working on, being better with my time. But when I do it, I have to follow through with my routine. So taking out any excuses to not follow through and not follow up is really the things that I see are blockades that are in my way that I need to just like move. What about you?
If I had to list some tangible things, I would say some things that I could give up or stop doing that would drastically change my life would be more fast food / like unhealthy foods, because I do like Uber Eats a lot, so cutting that out would be awesome.
It'll help your pocket
Not drinking, not that I drink that much honestly really anymore. Not smoking, especially if it's not social, not smoking as often. Not being on social media as often, like just clicking in and clicking in and clicking in. and similar to what you said, ignoring messages, but I wanted to focus more on those tangible things, like things that you really, it's something that you do that you really can just stop. But really, I just kind of thought about around that, like what I put in my body, where I'm deciding to go. But I think I feel pretty good about like the places I go. So maybe for some people, it might be like, oh, maybe going out less, or hanging out with particular people less, or some other things that you're not doing. Maybe it's, or something that you could stop doing is maybe stop like letting things pile up on your desk, or your clothes pile up.
Yeah.
Or so it's like looking around at, your habits or things that you're doing, and like, what's something that could change everything. And typically that's something that, well, for me, I guess mine kind of center around my health, because I feel like your body, and as you get older, I feel like that's that thing that really changes, that you kind of respect yourself a little bit more, where you're like, damn, I got to really take care of myself.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things I think reflect around making sure I'm a healthy person as a center core thing. And I think that being healthier and a clear mind, all of those things are what will really drastically change, like energy and output and other things as well.
You know what's beautiful is I only in this question and you asking it and me thinking back, do I realize like how far that I've come. Because if you had asked me this question 5 years ago, it was so different. There were so many things. I was like, man, I need to stop that. I need to stop that. I need to stop that. And now it's like I really have taken those steps to cut a lot of that stuff out. Like
What kind of stuff?
When I was in business school, they drink a lot. Like drinking is the culture and it's wild. And so like my first semester of business school, I was going out like almost every weekend. I don't do, and I've never been that type of person. I don't do that. I drink maybe once a month now. And when I do, it's like chill. It's nothing even crazy. So that eating out a lot, like eating unhealthy, like even when I eat out, I make wiser decisions because that's what fits into my goals and my alignment, like in my commitment to be in alignment with my purpose and with my bigger vision for my life. I've cut out a lot of things. I cut out a lot of toxic people. I cut out a lot of toxic habits, even like negative self-talk. Like I've been working so hard to move all of those, making sure that I'm not social media stalking, that I am more conscious of how and when I'm on my phone. It's like all of the things that we're discussing. But, even last year I had a much deeper issue or a bigger problem with a lot of these. And it's really beautiful to really just sit here and be like, wow, like I'm actually doing a lot of that work.
Yeah. And I mean, as we grow, like things just aren't fun anymore. Like the same things aren't fun, or the same things aren't what you consider to be like a good time or successful. And to go on a little caveat, one thing that I heard this week as well that was interesting to me is the guy was talking about, even if you're not sure, like that super end goal of what's success for you can always be changing. But he said one of the reasons why he is such a winner, like or has had such success with himself, is that he said even from a young age, he envisioned and did visualizations of success. But he was like, but note that when I was 20 or 25, I started doing this. And in my head, I was seeing like, oh, going out every weekend, like being able to pop bottles and enjoying my life. And he said that is what it was that he was working towards. But because he was doing that every day, like it just slowly started to change. So as he got to that, it's like, oh, okay, there's more. And then there's more. Hello.
Oh, hold on. Let me see.
Oh, it's good. It's good. Okay. I'm just going to try not to touch it. But he talked about how at different levels of his life, it's okay if what you're visualizing, like it might change, but your idea of success, like at least working towards it and recognizing that it's going to change over time. And so, what you're thinking now may not have been what you was thinking before. But it kind of gets there and it evolves with you.
And your habits should evolve with it, right? When you want to stand on tables and pop bottles and do all those things, that's amazing. Do what you do. But, if that's not your vision anymore, are your habits still in alignment with the old vision, or are they with where you're trying to go? Like, are they with where you are or where you're trying to go?
And so if there's tangible things that you could give up right now that will really change your life, then my question is always like, all right, well, why don't I? Or why haven't I? Or what's stopping you? Or what makes that hard? And for you, with what you said, not following up or following through with things, if you consider that like a tangible thing that you could stop doing, I guess, because you did hit it with the other part of it, but then what makes that hard?
I think for me, it's not feeling like I have like not feeling like I'm ready for some of these opportunities for clients, not feeling like I have everything together, not feeling like I'm where I should be, not having my systems in place. And so that's why I hadn't. What I'm doing to like change that is building those systems, but also realizing like having the audacity to move forward anyways and going after our opportunities anyways. I was actually having a conversation with a friend about this a couple of days ago, and it's so important just to have enough confidence with where you are and where your heart is and the work that you're doing and moving forward. Like, it's never going to be perfect, but you still have to keep moving forward. And it's interesting because I feel like I do that in a lot of areas in my life, but this is the last one where I'm really like, nah, you just have to do it and just go forward.
So it sounds like what's making it hard is your story that you're telling yourself, or your own kind of self-imposed limits.
You know, that usually is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
What about for you?
I haven't, yeah. For me, it is what makes it hard for me to stop eating unhealthy or smoking or hopping on social media is because I enjoy those things. And but to that point, if I'm sitting here kind of like, I'm kind of starting to have a different relationship with them, because I think what's very important, and another thing that I heard recently as well that made me think, is that it's important to consistently re-examine your relationship to these habits and to these things that you think are so enjoyable or that you think you like. And to that, for example, if you're trying to quit smoking cigarettes or something, it's like, yo, you think like, oh man, you're running outside to smoke. You're running outside to smoke, run outside to smoke. You're addicted. It feels good, whatever. But like when you really are smoking, like, you're coughing, like this shit feels crazy in your throat.
It's
like,
expensive.
Yeah, like how much you paying for it. Like when you really examine your relationship, it's like, yo, is this really an enjoyable experience? And so I think that with my things, it gets to the point of, all right, which thing weighs a little more? Like, do I really enjoy this like that? Or do I enjoy more the productivity I feel because my stomach's lighter, I feel healthier, or because my mind is clearer, or because I'm not distracted? Which one do I enjoy most? And for me right now, I'm in a period where I do love that productivity. I feel my best when it's like, man, I'm getting stuff done. I forgot about social media today, or, I didn't smoke today until I hung out with my friends later this evening. And I live in LA, y'all, so I'm not talking about cigarettes, but it's kind of just that awareness is like, all right, what's my relationship to these things? And like, is it even really worth like holding on to it? I also don't think there are things that are that terrible that it's like, and when we said earlier, like things that would drastically change, and I think it could, but it's also not things that have a super negative effect. But in this time that I'm in, it's easier to be like, all right, I don't need to do those things.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're being so intentional with your time, you don't really have space for stuff that that isn't in alignment.
Right.
I think another thing is checking in. So going back to like maybe the smoking cigarettes or like eating sweets or having soda or whatever your thing is the short term like joy that you feel over this, the short-term benefit that you're getting from doing this thing, more important than the long-term and how it affects you. For example, if you smoke a pack a day and eat Uber Eats all day, like every day, how is that in the long-term affecting you? Is that like important? Is that not important enough for you to continue doing your habits? And so weighing the short-term and the long-term benefits, like, yeah, it makes you feel good in the moment and it's cool and it's okay. Like one Uber Eats, like, oh, okay, that's not a big deal. But if you keep doing it, like thinking about how that affects you on the long term and how that affects that vision, that's really what institutes change, is thinking about those seemingly small moments, because those are what add up to the big ones.
And I would actually argue that the opposite may be even more effective. And what hit me through a real story this week as well, talking to a friend who was very excited and was like, yo, I think I feel so good that I haven't been drinking or anything because of something good happening. He's working on a deck to present, and it wasn't supposed to be due to like Wednesday. But he's like, yeah, I spent the weekend. I was like, I'm going to just chill at home and get this done, like get it started. He's like, yo, and then I finished it. And 30 minutes later, I got a text that was like, hey, I think this lady's actually trying to make a decision sooner than later. Can you like go ahead and send something over?
That's awesome.
And he was like, oh my gosh. He's like, I was so excited that like, yo, I was ahead. And to think that, like if I had went out or been hanging out or doing other things, it's like, yeah, I would have been fine. But he's like, this really makes me think like, lately I've really been more disciplined, focused on just spending your time where it needs to be spent. Like the more time you think you have, the more time you're going to waste. And so for him, it's like, yo, I'm wasting time doing some of these other habits and things. And so something positive happening made him realize like, yo, this is the kind of things I might be missing by doing that other stuff. Whereas sometimes you need that positive enforcement versus like, oh, do I really want to be fat if I keep eating? Because you might not feel that now. So it's harder to maybe relate. Or you might be in a position where, oh man, I have such terrible pains. And maybe that is where you relate to it. So again, like wherever you are, it may be like, yo, see what that positive feels like. That might be something that triggers you enough to be like, yo, I want more of this. Versus sometimes you don't know until you see how good it feels. If you're kind of focusing and being like, man, I could be probably doing better if I don't do this, but try it. Like give yourself that, as a test.
And I'm more of a positive reinforcement girl myself, and how things like being excited and joyful, like, oh man, I didn't eat out today. Like I'm killing it. I got an extra $10 on my account, whatever. So figuring out what works for you. But we challenge you this week to choose one thing that you can let go of, something that will make a difference, like a tangible difference, like in your life, how you're spending your time, how it's affecting your thoughts and your livelihood, and then make a commitment not to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So whatever that thing is, if you feel like sharing with us, feel free. I would say however long you think you want to be aware of this thing and stop doing it, or whether you put days on it or not, I don't know, do it your own way. Definitely like write about it and journal about, at the end of the day, is like how your relationship was with it. Was it hard? Did you struggle? Like, oh, do you feel good for not doing that thing? And just pay attention to it is really kind of what can make a difference in you just learning about yourself, honestly.
And then, so if we're giving up stuff and challenging people to, what do you do whenever you want to do that thing? Like whenever I want to hop on social media or want to stalk or whatever is going on.
So in the similar way of like the way Lent practice is, what I like is that if I've made a conscious decision to be aware of a thing or stop a thing, when I'm thinking about it, right in that moment, I can be like, all right, girl, do you want this or do you want that? And I can challenge myself to stick to what I actually care about. And also I think that I can take that as a moment. Like if I pick up my phone, I'm like, nope, I'm not supposed to be, on social right now or whatever it is. It makes me aware of how often I'm doing the thing. And so then when I start to go for that thing, or if maybe you mess up and you ate a piece of your honey bun or whatever, like whatever that is, making the decision to not say, well, we can start again, but to just stop right there and like just cut it, like do something different. And another thing too is that you can use that moment to now reflect on something different. So you can tell yourself, like we talked about with the other episode, I'm grateful for this, this, and this. How can I flip myself right now to focus on something positive? Or instead of this thing, what's something else that I could focus on right now in this moment? And just have a moment of awareness. So have whatever you do with it, but a moment of awareness and focus on the positive aspect of it.
I love that. And then thinking like, so if we're taking things away, you're in essence like creating space for other things. And so what are tangible things that you could choose to do right now that would drastically change your life or impact you?
Are you asking me that or are you asking them? Both.
Look,
that's all the things I said before, as far as the eating out or social media, all of those things. Like for me, that was my exact list.
Well, no, I mean things choose to do. So if you're not doing those things, what are things you can choose to do instead?
Oh, the other way around.
Yeah, so the flip side. So now you already thought about these things that you can cut out. So eating out, smoking all day, whatever, it's eating a lot of sweets or drinking, whatever those things are. So now you kind of thought about like what things to cut out. So what are tangible things you could choose to do that would make an impact in your life?
So I could meal prep. I could plan more on grocery shopping and my meals. I could not re-up every week. I could 5-second rule myself a little more when I get a message or an email to try to follow up more quickly. And I could budget follow my budget, which I do that a lot better. So that's like in motion. Yeah. I think it's just practicing more of habits on the other side of this. And, and thinking about Lent and this topic, that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, really, my first thoughts, if somebody's like, yo, what can you cut out? For me, I'm like, nothing's that crazy to cut out. I'm more so thinking about the stuff that I wish I was maybe more focused in doing.
Yeah.
So for me, like my biggest thing was going to be like the follow up too. Like I would say there's certain things that I want to do more of or that I need to focus on doing. And so I wondered like if, is there a thing where instead of saying I want to give up something for 40 days in a row, what are those things that I might say, okay, every day for 40 days, I want to try to instill a habit or do something. And again, for me, that would be the follow up. And another thing that I was thinking would be like writing, like even if I just wrote like 10 minutes every day or just try to do a little bit more writing, that's something that I think would make a difference as well.
I love that. And I think for me, thinking of things to do is better also than cutting because it's not super wild, but being more consistent. So, for example, something tangible I could do is give myself 48 hours to respond to any messages that I get, and that's it. Like, there's no room for like questioning it or doing it like, nope, 48 hours, you got to respond. And so I think that's something that I'm going to try. I've been, consistent with my workouts. Writing is something I would like to also do at least 10 minutes a day. I've been reading at least 20 minutes a day. Like that's something I was like, just 20 minutes. It's not really that long, but making sure I'm reading and like pouring in information. So those are some of the things I can do. But I love this idea and this outlook on Lent. Instead of just cutting things out, it's like also pouring things back in, which also helps create more space for success and working towards things.
But we say that, but also I think Lent is very important, and giving up something is very important because it's the idea of things you enjoy and not even necessarily that it's bad either. So like with Lent, it doesn't necessarily mean like this has to be something so terrible, but it's denying yourself gratification is kind of what I think I was looking for way earlier when I couldn't figure out what I was trying to say with that. But to deny yourself some things because you can use that for something else right now. I think it's more than just to be like, oh, this is to make myself better, but I think it's kind of to suffer a little bit too. Like in the Christian like tradition, it's also about having time to suffer and having time to recognize like who you really are, what's really important without these things or without sweets or, if your life wasn't so comfortable, like just to jar you into kind of getting out of automatic a little bit. And so I do think there are things that make it very valuable to cut a thing out, not necessarily saying like, this is bad, which is why after the 40 days, people are like, okay, I can eat a honey bun or whatever. And people know, like, if this is really your thing, or if it's just, I'm going to stop watching Netflix for 40 days, And actually, that's probably something I should have put on mine, actually. Now that I think about it, I might make that my thing. But it's denying yourself that. And, like, what else are you going to do outside of those things?
Yeah, and it's like when Jesus was in the desert and he wasn't eating and abstaining from those things. And so that gratification, I think that is important to build positive habits, though. For me, that's why I like adding it. So it's not only are you disciplining yourself and seeing what things you can do without, because doing without, like there's scientific research around like when you put your body and your mind in unfamiliar situations, like that helps build a lot of resiliency in you and helps like it can help improve health and all of those things and push you further. But in the absence of those things, now that you have more time, like when you're not watching Netflix, like what are some positive things you can also commit to and be disciplined to help you, work towards stuff? So not only are you cutting out things or removing them either because they're bad or because you just want to discipline yourself and deny, instant gratification of things. But what are some things you can focus that energy on and building now that you have extra time and space and mental clarity?
Yeah, so replacing that with the other. And it's also good because it reminds you what you can do without. So like, not being attached to a lot of these things that we use every day or, are just so accustomed to, like you can do without them. So again, it's like a really focus, or you can make it a real focus into the positive if you take what Carlie's saying and put in those other habits. And if you take that time to really let there be a time to focus on yourself. So that being said, what are you willing to give up? Or looking at your life right now, there may be things in different categories. It may be something like, man, I really enjoy this and I spend a lot of time on it, but I don't need it. And it may not be bad, but like I may not need it. So like, what if I cut that? What if I cut that Netflix time? What else can I do? Even if it's just read instead or go for a walk instead, it might not necessarily mean, oh, I got to work 50 more hours because I'm not watching TV.
Maybe you get extra hours sleep.
Yeah, something simple like that. Or you can think about really like, yo, what is that thing? Like I know I do too much of, I feel bad every time I do it, and really trying to challenge yourself to do something different, even if you're just saying for a week, even if you're just saying for 30 days, whatever it is, just trying to, see what that looks like. And it's going to be a struggle, which I think is the point. But, it helps you face who you really are. Like what do you really want? And it's going to feel good as you see yourself, it being easier to say like, yo, choose yourself, choose what I want, instead of choosing those other things.
And I like that it's a good challenge. Some advice like on the journey, whether you're cutting things or adding them, if you're like, man, I blew this for 40 days seems so big. It starts with one day at a time. Literally, it's one day at a time that you're making sure you're not doing that thing or doing those things that you choose to make yourself better. My old project manager had a saying, and it is, how do you eat an elephant? And I'm like, well, why would you eat an elephant, first of all? But he was like, that's not the point. But it's just one day at a time, one bite at a time. And so if you're trying to, discipline yourself or build more productive habits, learn to choose yourself, like think about it one step at a time. Don't get overwhelmed by the time period or trying to make this big change right now, just every day.
Okay. And again, let us know if you have anything that you'd like for us to shout out on future episodes. We look forward to you guys sharing with us what you've given up for Lent in the past, maybe what you're giving up this year, or if there's something you've come up with now as a result of this episode or something that you want to give up. Let us know what that is. Carlie, and I guess I'm going to kind of make this the question of the week. Is there, or do you want to make a commitment to focus on a thing that you want to give up for a little while? And if you don't, that's fine.
No, I do. I don't know what that thing is, though.
Okay.
But I definitely want to do something. I also am instituting that rule. I have to respond to emails in 48 hours or less. So I'll check back in and let y'all know how that's going. What about you?
I think I am going to. So I already was giving up sweets, sweet foods. I was like, I'm not pressed about drinks and stuff. But I did say, all right, I'm going to try to not eat any sweet foods for Lent. So I started that when Lent started. But I think now, too, I'm going to throw in Netflix. I'm trying to think, should I throw in all streaming or just Netflix? I think I'm going to throw in all streaming for like the next few weeks. And so cutting out like the Netflix, HBO Go, Crunchyroll, but not necessarily like I can't be around somebody if they have the TV on, nothing like that. But like that I'm not going to like go in and turn it on and like make it a thing.
So what?
Or maybe on the weekdays or something. Maybe I'll say that.
Yeah, and it can have parameters, whatever parameters you want around it. But what are some things that you would like to commit to giving up or changing in a time period? We love for you to share, screenshot, share on your stories, send it to us, tag us, Carlie's Couch, CC Fierce, Lextopia.
And with that, we will see you next time.
Bye.